Attorney Roger P. Foley, and I'm driving this morning, and I wanted to follow up on the video I put out yesterday. And I wanted to talk about criminal situations and what you would do. So I'm going to start with one situation, all right? And I'm going to probably talk about random things, but there are always hard decisions to make. So the first one that pops out is, I was talking to a gentleman recently, and he had a military case. And he was accused of joining in and beating somebody up, right? Kind of like a barroom brawl. And he wasn't involved. He didn't kick the person, he didn't punch the person, but this person was seriously injured. And when he went to his attorney, he said, look, I have all this evidence. I have these witnesses. I have this. And the attorney said, hey, man, you're not going to win. And if you lose during trial, you're going to go to prison. So that scared him enough to go, well, I mean, the lawyer knows, right? The lawyer knows. I don't have the training and the experience in this kind of matter. So he's telling me that I got to plead guilty, and this person pled guilty. Well, now it's like buyer's remorse. A few years later, right? They're out of the military. They've been dishonorably discharged, and they're going, wait, do you want to live with regret? What would you do in that situation? Would you have freely pled guilty knowing that you have evidence and witnesses that could help you win your case? Go against what your attorney is telling you? Or would you have done the same thing and pled guilty or no contest? I don't know. I can tell you for me, in 98% of the situations, if I was charged with a crime and I knew that I was innocent, regardless of what the evidence seemed to show or what my attorney said, 98% of the time, I would stand on my principle and I would go forward. That's me. However, I would mentally prepare myself for the worst thing that could happen, which is to be incarcerated, and I would be prepared to go in and do my time if I was convicted of the crime. But I would make sure that I had an attorney that was enthusiastic, that I had an attorney that was ready to go, that prepared, that wasn't a slouch. And I would go forward. But now, how does that situation change if I'm offered if they're offering me 2 years of probation and I'm not a convicted felon and it's something that's sealable and the odds are really against me, maybe I do that, right? Because the risk is so great. But I don't know, that's a situation. So let's talk about the fun stuff. You're working at Best Buy or Walmart or a store in the mall, and that one of your coworkers is stealing, and they haven't gotten caught, but you know. Do you approach them and talk to them and convince them to put the money back, or to confess, to management? Do you go to management? Do you turn them in? What do you do? I'm really curious, right? Because I have my preconceived notions about what people do. But I'm really curious, like what do people that check out my website, my YouTube channel, what do they think? I'm curious if there's going to be consistency where we all kind of have the same thoughts and same beliefs, or are they all erratic? Or some people like, hell no, I'm gonna ask them to give me some, or hey, they haven't got caught, maybe I'll start stealing, or are you kidding? No, I'm gonna report them. I'm gonna do the right thing, or hey, I'm gonna go to them and I'm gonna give them a heart-to-heart, and I'm gonna convince them that they should go tell their boss that they screwed up and they made a mistake and they want to do the right thing. Or are they going to put the money back somehow? What are people's thoughts on something like that, like theft? And then you contradict that with a situation where right now I'm driving on 95. And what if there is a pedestrian, or what if I hit a bicyclist? I mean, there's not going to be a pedestrian or a bicyclist necessarily on 95, but change it to 441, or change it to military trail, or whatever it may be, a road that's traveled also by pedestrians, bicyclists, runners, etc. And your family member, your wife, your husband, they tell you, they come home and the car is damaged, seriously damaged, and they put it in the car, and they come in and they say, honey, I think I hit somebody. And you go out and you look at the car and you see hair and you see blood. What do you talk to them about, right? You hear the story. Do you convince them to call the police, to turn themselves in, to go back to the scene? Do you tell them to wait? Do you help them fix the car? What do you do? Right? If they left the scene and someone is seriously injured or killed, are they going to go to prison? Are you going to convince them to go turn themselves in and then they're going to go to prison? Are you going to hope for the best? Are you going to wait and see what happens? But then you turn on the news, the next morning, and you find out that there was a hit and run and there was a death, that someone's son, daughter, aunt, uncle, mother, father, a man and his dog were killed, in the early morning hours as they were walking. What do you do? That's what I'm curious about. I'm curious about all of the types of cases that I have my preconceived notions of how I would handle things. But I'm quite curious about what everybody else does. Are we all on the same page, or do we have slightly differing opinions or greatly differing opinions? I don't know. That's what I'm curious about. Let me give you some other examples. Let's say you're working in a law firm and you discover that one of the secretaries or paralegals, the bookkeeper, is stealing money from the client's trust account. Do you go, well, let the boss figure that out and, you stay away, or do you go tell? What if you find out that Uncle Billy is molesting the neighborhood boy next door that's 12 years old. But you don't really know the neighbors, but Uncle Billy's always been a great guy. Do you turn Uncle Billy in? Do you talk to Uncle Billy and convince him to go turn himself in? I mean, there's a child, there's a 12-year-old, and Uncle Billy, Uncle Billy likes little boys, or you've walked in on him, sort of like the Sandusky case, right? With the Penn State person that, walked in on a coach that walked in on another coach having relations with a minor. What do you do? Do you come forward? Do you rat him out? Which is more important? Your relationship with, Uncle Billy, his family, or a 10-year-old boy or 12-year-old boy child who is being molested, who is being violated? Which side are you on? These are the kinds of questions that I deal with on a routine basis. I get calls from people throughout the state of Florida dealing with the situation. What are your thoughts? If you know that your family member, your best friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your son, your daughter are committing crimes. Here's another example. You're a parent and you have a teenage child, and you start noticing that they have a gold chain, and you're like, where'd you get that? And you're like, just a friend gave it to me. And then next thing you know, they have new clothes, and they have a new pair of earphones, and they have a new laptop, and you're not giving it to them. And then you search their room, and you find money, and you find drugs, and you find other things involving illegal activity. What do you do as a parent? Do you protect the child? Do you protect the victim? Do you keep it hush-hush and just tell them to stop it and quit it and hope for the best? What do you do? Are you really going to turn in your own kid? Now change that fact pattern. What if you find out that your 15-year-old is having sexual relations with an 8-year-old next door neighbor? What do you do then? What if your 15-year-old babysits and is inappropriately touching the child that they're babysitting on? My goodness, my daughter's only 15 years old, and they're fornicating with a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old. And you find out. What do you do? What if you find out that your husband or wife has murdered someone, that they've killed them and that they've buried them? What do you do? What is your duty? I'm not going to talk about legal duties. What do you feel like your ethical duty is? Do you live by God's law? Do you live by the community's law? Do you have your own inner thoughts on how to do it? That's what I'm curious about. I know what the law says, guys. I'm curious about what people think. You know, what the everyday person thinks. Your husband, your wife, your ex-husband, your ex-wife, you find out they confess to you that they murdered someone. Could have been a drug deal gone bad when they were younger. It could have been a situation like a hit and run, and they came back and realized that no one had discovered the body yet, and they scooped it up and went and buried it. It could be that they lost control when they were out with someone. What do you do when someone confides a horrific crime to you? I mean, it's crazy, but defense attorneys around the country hear these things. Some stories crazier than others, but I can tell you theft stories all the time. Theft stories all the time. Drug stories all the time. You know, a son and daughter selling drugs, getting money. Molestation, you know, you hear about it. I can't say that I've heard a lot about people killing someone, because I think anyone that commits a murder, they probably don't want to tell anybody, even including an attorney. But hit and run. Hey, I hit someone and I ran. I got scared. What do you do when your loved one tells you that? I mean, the car is totaled. The car's in your name. What does your inner mind tell you about putting your nose into things, keeping your nose out of things? Where is it okay to stay out of it? Where is it mandatory that you disclose it? Do you have that line? Do you have that thought of what you're supposed to do? What if you get into a fist fight and no one's around, and you hit someone and they fall and they hit their head on a table and you see blood? What do you do? Are you instantly getting help? You were just mad at them. You were just fighting with them. They're a total stranger. Maybe they're a family member. Maybe they're your significant other. You've just lost your cool. You just hit someone. You were just angry for a moment, but when you hit them, they fell and they hit their head and they're unconscious. They're bleeding out. Do you call your boyfriend or girlfriend, your husband or wife, your brother or sister, your best friend? Do you call them first and ask for advice? Do you call an attorney and ask for advice? Do you just dial 911 and say, hey, someone's injured? Hey, I got into a fight. Do you tell them the story, or do you just say, hey, no, they fell? What do you do? These are the questions that are asked day in and day out to defense attorneys across the country. And it's usually after the incident's happened. It's a frantic call. Oh my God, I'm on the side of the road. I hit someone. What do I do? Dial 911. But I have a suspended driver's license. Dial 911. Get that person help. Can't tell you how many people over the years have called and told a story about getting into an accident and getting scared because they had been drinking or they had been smoking or Nothing. They were just driving. Maybe they didn't see the person. It was dark, and they hit someone. And you know what they did? They ran. What do you do? Oh, I thought it was a mailbox post. It turns out it was a person. Turns out that person is in a hospital in a coma, or that person's dead, or that person is seriously injured. You got scared, you already ran, so now you know it's worse. Now what do you do? Questions. I know what I would do, but what would you do? What would you do if it was you? What would you do if it was someone you loved? If it was your family, your husband, wife, kids, etc. I don't know. All this was spurred on by a video. What the heck is the guy's name? It's a YouTube guy, and I should give him the credit. Oh my goodness! Not Nate the lawyer. I really enjoy watching Nate the lawyer. He does a lot of political stuff, though. Not necessarily a lot of legal stuff, but he does. But I really enjoy watching his YouTube channel. Nate the lawyer. This is a guy, and I started watching him, but he goes on and gives these debates, and they're always debates those are things that I steer clear from. But you know, he talks about I don't know, what do they talk about on college campuses these days? You know, it's always these political arguments. It's always these arguments about transgender and various, things of that nature. But what I got out of watching one of his arguments was, hey, what is the standard in our community? What is the standard in our nation? What is the standard? Do you and your next door neighbor have similar thoughts on right and wrong? Or are we just so diverse in our thinking, which people always say diversity is such a great thing, but is diversity in right and wrong a good thing? Does everybody agree that if you murder someone intentionally, that you should be punished? Does everybody agree with that? Does everybody agree that if you stole something, you should be punished? Does everybody agree that if you molest a child, you should be punished? Or, in all of those scenarios, do we just disagree on what the punishment should be? Some people think no punishment. Some people think light punishment. Some people believe extreme punishment. Is that where we're varying? Or are we varying on what is actually right and what's wrong? And do we have different standards when we're dealing with ourselves or our family members versus strangers or people of opposite sexes or opposite religious beliefs? When do we start to falter? Does skin color determine how someone should be punished? Do we believe that? Do we believe attitude or remorse should play some role in mitigation? These are the questions, right? But if we're not all on the same page, then someone's always to blame. Someone's always at fault. Someone's always not guilty. Someone's always, got shit on by the system. Someone's always making an argument that they were disciplined based on their sexual orientation or their religion or their skin color. Don't we need an agreement to be made on what is permissible and what is not? If here's an example that you'd probably see, right? During the BLM movement, right? Should people that are protesting, that vandalize stores, that loot, should they be punished the same as someone else who, when there was no upheaval or no disagreement in our country about a matter, if Roger Foley walks into Nordstrom's and steals a shirt and he has no criminal history, should he be punished the same as a looter who broke into a store, stole items, and then lit it on fire? Now, granted, there's different crimes there, but just on the theft charge, if I go in and steal a shirt, what should the punishment be? If I go in and I steal 1,000 shirts, is it the same thing? Where do we differ? Is the punishment the same? You steal $1, or you steal 100, or you steal 1,000, or you steal 1,000,000? Now the laws say that the punishments are different, but what do you think as a person? If you accidentally killed someone, if you killed someone on purpose, if you were negligent or reckless and it caused the death of another person, still a dead person, right? How should you be punished? Should you be punished? My God, it was an accident. I didn't do anything. I mean, this guy just rode his bicycle out in front of my car. And I stopped and I called 911. Should that person, he or she still took a life, right? Or should the person who was drinking and driving or high on drugs or talking on their cell phone and they hit somebody, should they be punished differently? It's still a death, it's still a body, end result is still the same. But are the factors that led up to it different, and should we punish differently? A black or Hispanic gang member was driving through the neighborhood and ran over a child. Should that person, because they're a gang member, be punished different from the suburban mom or the CEO of a company who they did the same thing? They accidentally hit someone. Should the punishment be the same? When people come to my office, they always have justifications or excuses. Not always, I shouldn't say that. There are people who just say, oh, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason. And I often say, hey, what about the other side? What about what the government's going to say? What about the judge? Or they'll tell me an argument. I go, buddy, if I use that argument, you're going to get crushed. You always have to think about the other side. What do you guys think? I don't know. Anyway, I got to pull over and look at my phone and make sure I get off at the right exit so I don't get lost. All right, guys, have a great day. Be blessed.